I am Shafkat Khan, Director of Conservation, Pittsburgh Zoo and Aquarium. I also work with both of you as program co-leads of Safe Red Panda.
And my name is Jenn Torpie. I'm the Vice President of Education and Community Engagement, also work on Safe Red Panda.
Hello, I'm John Rossi. I'm a touring drummer with a passion for animal conservation. When I'm on the road, I spend as much time as possible visiting zoos, aquariums, and conservation organizations. Now, I want to share those places with you. I'll be talking to keepers, vets, conservationists, anyone who can help me in my mission of connecting my people to animals through their people. Join me on my Rossifari. Hi, hello, how are you? Welcome back to the Rossifari podcast. All right, y'all, so this week we are bringing you guys a new to the pod facility, which is the Pittsburgh Zoo and Aquarium. But the people who are on the podcast are anything but new to my life. So as you heard in their introductions, both Shafkat and Jenn have been working with me from basically the start of Safe Red Panda. And so this is one of those interviews where there's a lot of familiarity and a lot of work that we've all done together, and a lot of fun because of that. I think I break both of their brains a little bit in this interview, which is always a lot of fun for me. So yeah, I'm really, really, really excited to have gotten to spend this time with Shafkat and Jenn. And I have to tell y'all, it was such a great day. Jenn spent most of the day with me. She was able to not have to do too much crazy work stuff. And Shafkat was able to do lunch with us and hang out a bit, and he showed me to his office and introduced me to some people there. And also, it's worth mentioning that afterwards we went out and got dinner together. And y'all, they know some cool places in Pittsburgh, so it was quite a treat. So I am super excited to share with you the work that they're doing at the Pittsburgh Zoo, to share with you what it has been like doing Safe Red Panda together, and just to share all of the laughs and fun and honestly deep philosophical conversation that we have in the next hour here. So before we get to that, though, I do have a couple of quick reminders. Make sure you are following the podcast, hit subscribe or follow or whatever your app tells you to hit so that you don't miss any episodes. Make sure that you're following along on the socials at Rossifari, at Rossifari Pod on the TikTok machine. Don't forget that there is a new Discord server where you can come and chat with some of the biggest Rossifari fans out there. And I've been having some fun with that. As a matter of fact, I'm actually dropping this episode a little bit early because I did a poll in the Discord this week and asked who they wanted to hear from. And this is the episode that won. So lots of cool opportunities. I'll have links in my stories and in the show notes for all of that. And of course, make sure you're following Safe Red Panda on the socials if you're not yet, because we are closing in on our first 1,000 followers, which is always a really good feeling. So with all of that said, it is time to get to it. Here is my interview with Jenn and Shafkat from the Pittsburgh Zoo and Safe Red Panda. So this is fun. We've been working together on Safe Red Panda for a couple of years now. And since day one, I was like, you guys have to be on my podcast at some point. And now finally I had a chance to get to Pittsburgh and I'm so excited. So let's start off talking about what y'all do at the zoo here. And I know that you guys definitely collaborate on stuff. But yeah, I'm curious about each of your positions. So Shafkat, since you introduced yourself first, let's start with you. And what do you do as the Director of Conservation?
That's a great question. So I oversee all aspects of conservation work of the zoo, be it local or be it international or regional. And we have a conservation center where we would love to host you sooner than later, where we are also trying to do more reintroduction and conservation-oriented work, including capacity building and that sort of thing. So I help and assist and lead in all aspects of those. And recently, we're working more closely with the education team. So our local conservation work is really looking at the interface of capacity building, public engagement, education, and conservation impact in the region. So that's what I do here.
That's really cool. And I'm starting to notice, it's funny that you say that because I'm starting to notice more and more conservation organizations seem to be realizing that public engagement is important. I've seen a lot more posts recently of places looking for social media coordinators and outreach people, education people. I was approached yesterday by a conservationist who I love about maybe going on a trip with him to share the stories of what they do out there and stuff like that. And when I started the podcast almost 7 years ago now, it seemed like most conservationists that I talked to didn't think about that as much. So it seems like there's been a real interesting push in that direction, which I think is really important because who's going to fund the work that y'all are doing and who's going to care about the work that y'all are doing if they don't know it's being done, right?
Yeah.
So that's been very cool to see. What type of local conservation stuff do you do here?
A bunch of different things. And just to sort of touch on what you were saying, so during COVID, there was this whole conversation about decolonizing conservation and other allied conservation in different fields, but really focusing on environment. And to be honest, in the local, setting, a zoo is not necessarily a DNR or national park service, state parks, and so on. So we don't manage land. A lot of our actions do have to come through inspiring the public and let them take action. So participatory action has become a much really effective tool and avenue to engage the public on. And it sort of serves dual purposes of inspiring people to do their, own work and engage with the messaging, but also actually carrying further our conservation intent in the local landscapes. So speaking of which, our local conservation portfolio is growing. It's, we have really ambitious vision, and we are just sort of probably a first floor, second floor of a, multi-story building at this point. So one of the things that we have been trying to do is looking at different alternative landscape management practices on personal or private properties to shift from lawn to habitats, which has both biodiversity benefits. People can practice what they're hearing about here at the zoo, but also a lot of climate change benefits of shifting from fossil fuel to non-fossil fuel or reducing fertilizer use. And we are surrounded by rivers. So runoff is a huge issue here, and water use also is. So shifting to native habitats, it's the one solution to many problems. So really attractive to tell a story. We're in the second year of doing a small-scale public campaign on it. Hopefully, we get to increase the tempo in the coming years more. We are also part of, there's a Canopy Alliance in Pittsburgh who focus on urban greening and canopies and canopy bays work. So their advocacy, related work is really strong there. And we sort of represent the biodiversity conversation pretty strongly there. So that's advocacy. Another advocacy work we do with Allegheny County Bird Conservation Alliance. And we're looking to scale up public campaigns around bird window collision stickers or other, retrofitting or things that make cities more livable for wildlife. So those are some of the things that we're doing in the city.
That's really cool. A lot of times when I talk to zoo-based conservationists, they're doing local work, but it's just reintroduction stuff. And I say just, that's wildly important. But I don't hear a lot about advocacy campaigns right now. So to hear that you're doing so much of that is really cool. Does the zoo have a good relationship with the city? Like the people of the city?
I think so.
Yeah,
okay.
We are an institution. We just celebrated our 128th birthday. So people have a long memory of coming to the zoo and having a great time with their family and bonding with their friends and coming on school field trips. That being said, I think we're really only now kind of stepping into a conservation role within the city. It had been the zoo is a place who cares for animals, does that really well, and also welcomes you for a fun trip. You can get your popcorn and your Dippin' Dots. But now we're really forming a lot more partnerships with our city partners around conservation, and I think that's only going to continue to grow.
And I just remembered a pilot project we're doing in one of the long disinvested areas or neighborhoods in Pittsburgh, in the Hill District, where we're demonstrating with landscape design and infusing biodiversity-based plantings and native plantings, how to keep long-term care and stewardship of or cost of the space low. So it's an interface of environmental justice, equity, but also climate change solutions at a neighborhood scale that people can, uptake. So we're really excited about that as well.
Nice. Very cool. How do you determine, I know there is going to be a limited conservation budget, and you've got all of that stuff going on locally. Plus, I know there's a lot of international conservation work, which we'll talk about a little bit. How do you figure out what to prioritize?
Great question. So you probably already know that we have a guiding framework of a conservation strategy. That was the very first thing when I landed at Pittsburgh Zoo. We got the zoo team together, so people have a decent understanding of what our big picture priorities are. But then in terms of individual projects, it's really about being present in many different conversations, especially locally, because Pittsburgh is so rich in small to mid-sized environmental organization, and we don't want to step on people's toes. We don't want to take anything away from people, but we're there as a collaborator, offering empowerment and support when needed, and really understanding what they do and where we can be most catalytic. So we probably have shared with you 3 or 4 things we're doing locally, but there were tenfold other stuff that we started conversation around. We understood what people were doing, and by I wouldn't say process elimination, but by just let the process play out a little bit and see what collaborations are really fruitful and are needed from the other side, or there's a community need, and those are all the things that go into it. But then the strategy really guides our vision of whether it has a communication, a storytelling aspect to the work that we do, whether there's an environmental equity aspect to the work that we're trying to do, whether there are strong collaboration possibility. We know that we're not the only conservation organization in the region, neither do we manage a lot of land. We manage none in Pittsburgh. So the work is really filtered through all those lenses to actually arrive at some of these solutions that we're talking about.
Very cool. That's I think that feels like something I'm starting to struggle with in my own world as I get more involved with the conservation stuff. It's like, I'm doing Safe Red Panda, I'm doing Safe Tree Kangaroo, launching a Safe Binturong program right now, which has been insane. And assuming we get approval, I then go right back into the 3-year plan creation, which we all got to do together for Red Panda. That's not time consuming at all. And at some point it just becomes a lot, plus doing Rossifari, plus the other advocacy stuff I try to do. I think what you just said actually really inspired me. I have a vision, I have my mission statement for Rossifari, which is connecting people to animals through their people. But I think I need a larger conservation strategy as well to figure out, because my time is just getting split too much, and I don't want to be pulled too thin. And I haven't thought about it from that perspective. So thank you for that, actually, because that's a good thing to think about.
I think it's also knowing when to say no and understanding your resources, right? So
I'm sorry, what was that word you just said? Knowing when to say...
No. Let's practice together.
No.
1, 2, 3.
No. Woo! I learned something today.
Yeah, if you have a mission, if you have the core areas you're focusing on, right? That really should be what you're focusing the majority of your time, money, and energy on. And don't think that money and time are the only resources you have, right? Are there ways that you can be a connector to other community members who could support something in a way that they have more capacity than you at that time, right? So what are your strengths? Connecting with people, sharing stories. I think it's helpful, and we've gone through this process as well to understand what resources the zoo has on hand. We have a really great creative services team. We have amazing animal experts, veterinary expertise, educators. That's where our strengths are. And also we have this presence in the community that we're able to connect community members with each other and the conservation work that they really love and want to support in the region. If there's something that's a little bit outside of that, are we really the best stewards of that project? Are we really the best people to help? And if not, pass on it so you can focus on what you're really going to make the most impact on, because you don't want to stretch yourself so thin that you're not able to do anything well.
Yeah, no, that has become a concern for me. Actually, at mid-year, I was asked to basically do what I do for the other two that I'm currently working on with Safe Koala, and I did. I said the no. I said I came out. I was like, if you guys need help, you can reach out. But I had to because I knew we were going to do the binturong thing as well, and I just knew, it was too much. But it's hard.
Can I
It's hard.
just do a quick shout out to just conservation strategy in general? So our conservation strategy takes a lot of inspiration from the LA Zoo's conservation strategy, which was one of the first really public-facing document that I saw when I entered the field in zoo-based conservation. And then the Detroit Zoo was a nice area zoo to try some of these ideas out. But then I think Pittsburgh Zoo's conservation strategy is even more tightened up. There are other zoos that have taken that. We're talking with a couple other colleagues at mid-year. And more, I think zoos are looking at overarching frameworks to tighten their conservation portfolio and really measure return on investment and think what they really care about and what they're really good at. And not just thinking about what zoos should do, but more about thinking like a conservation organization. But when I share the same story to more of a non-zoo based audience, I invite people, and I'm inviting you to think about your resources, time and money are always limited. So even if it's $1, you don't have to have a multi-$100,000 budget. But if you have $1, what are the large, big picture things that you're thinking about, and how do you invest that time and that little bit of money to make a difference in the world? And that's essentially is the impetus behind our conservation strategy. With the limited resource and money, what is the most return on investment we can make based on our values? Which is a really fun exercise.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, you've given me much to think about.
And it evolves too, right? Like, we know that our conservation strategy right now is not going to be the same in 5, 10, 20 years because we are going to be in a different place. We'll have different resources. We'll have different staff expertise on the team. So what is it that we can impact now while setting ourselves up for success in the future? Maybe it's not no, this is never for us. Maybe it's this is not for us right now.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense. That's very cool. Well, that was unexpected. Thank you for that. So, Jen, tell me a little bit about what your position is here and some of the basics of what you do.
Yeah, so I work really closely with Shafkat to help support him in the conservation work. So we work really closely together to build the strategy, to implement it, to connect with community partners, and to really figure out how the zoo can make a difference in our community. But my role is in education and community engagement is to figure out how we can bring people to the zoo, make sure while they're here, they're learning something, whether they know it or not. They leave a little bit more inspired, a little more excited about people who do the conservation work and the animals that they saw. And then also make sure we're bringing the zoo to the community through education programs. So we have education programs at our zoo and offsite. We attend a lot of community events. We also have an amazing group of volunteers, adult volunteers, teen volunteers here at the zoo that I also oversee, and a great interpretive education program of helping people make that connection and translate sometimes complex animal information and conservation information so that it's accessible to all of our community. So that's a little dabbling.
That's a lot. That's like a lot of the things.
I mean, it's a lot of the things, but also anyone who works in a nonprofit knows that everyone wears 16 different hats at all times. Like hats stacked on stacked on stacked.
That is fair. That is fair.
But yeah, it's again in making sure that we have the resources. Like my job, I have such a great team. Shafkat's amazing. All of my education staff are amazing. It's really just getting them the resources that they need and then getting out of their way so they can run with their amazing ideas.
That makes sense. And when you talk about going off and doing like programming and stuff, are we talking about ambassador animals? Are we talking about, okay.
We have a group of about 60 ambassador animals, a little over right now, a variety of different taxa, and we have them in on-site programs, and we do still do off-site programs with our ambassadors.
Nice. Very cool. Which brings me to one of the rules is that whenever we get too philosophical on this podcast and talk too much about things, we have to bring it back and talk about an animal.
Okay.
And so one of the animals that I know is here that isn't in the ambassador program anymore, but was, and I just need to give a shout out to, is Poppy the binturong.
Yay.
And so tell me about this binturong.
Yeah, so Poppy came to us rather either right before or right during COVID. I think it was right before. And she
It
was
was
with us
right
for about
before.
a year before COVID. So
Yes.
she actually predates me at this. So I've only been here 3 years right now. And she was great and is still great. But ambassador animal lifestyle is not a great fit for every animal personality. And she had amazing relationships with her trainers and did really well. But during COVID, not seeing people for so long, Shirley became kind of accustomed to that, and it became challenging for her to integrate back as an ambassador animal. So even though it kind of, we had to have hard conversations of what is her best personality fit.
I'm sorry. I know that you mean like your team had to have hard conversations.
No, we had to sit this binturong down and be like, Poppy, come on, girl. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? No.
That's exactly what I pictured. And I was like, I love that so much.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't have to have the conversation. She was telling us in other ways for
Right.
sure. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't mean that she was getting amazing care with us and really had close relationships with her keepers. And one of our keepers ended up getting positioned in another part of the zoo, working in that area. We call it the jungle and the islands.
Yeah.
And we said, okay, well, they have the space. It's behind the scenes. It has indoor-outdoor space. She'd still get to work with this keeper who she knows and trusts. So let's try that. Let's see, monitor her personality, monitor her behavior, and see if we see any changes. And she had a diurnal lifestyle with us, but within a few months of her switching up there, she switched back to the natural nocturnal style. She is now in a forward-facing habitat, so the public can see her, but she can choose when she is visible or not, and she's thriving.
That's
So
awesome.
again, it's not that ambassador animal life is a problem for animals. It's just that we really do have to take into account that personality is just a natural fit for this animal at this time of their life, and Poppy is doing really well.
That's awesome. Yeah, Zoe got a internship here right at the start of COVID, and everyone was sent home. But she was here for like a couple weeks of it, and like I think her first full day met Poppy, and has been bragging to me about knowing this binturong that I haven't even seen yet ever since. So I'm hoping that I'll get to see Poppy
It's
at
all up
some
to
point.
her.
Oh, I know, but I'm hoping. I'm
Yeah,
hoping.
yeah.
I'm very excited.
You'll know she's around if you smell that classic popcorn smell
Yeah.
of the binturong.
Yes, it's so lovely. Cool, very good. So let's transition to talking about Safe Ride Panda a little bit. This has been a fun journey that we have been on for the last couple of years, and a lot of times, I know different names have been used, but a lot of times, a lot of the decision making and a lot of the stuff that has been done has come down to the I think Nikki calls us the executive committee now sometimes, which is the three of us and her and Kelly, who is our secretary. And so I didn't ever expect to be in that kind of role when all of this started.
You're drunk with power.
Yes, I know. We are 3/5 of the humans saving all red pandas or something, right? No, no. But I find it's been amazing. I'm curious what it was like for both of y'all. Shafkat, I know that you were part of it from the start, back when you were still at Detroit. So what has your individual journey been like with Safe Ride Panda?
Do you want to start? Because you have a longer history than I do.
So Detroit Zoo had a relationship with RPN, as do many zoos. Pittsburgh surprisingly hadn't, but we also kind of started the conservation portfolio as it stands now. There was some work here before, so not that Pittsburgh didn't want to work with RPN, but Detroit had a longer relationship. And I was there, and at that time, I think there were less than 20 safe programs. They hadn't sort of ballooned the way they have in the recent couple of years. So understanding where the conservation opportunities lie and so on, visited with RPN in the field almost like 2.5 years before we announced the program plan, or 3 years before. So had time with them in the field, and I'm from Bangladesh, so Nepal, although they're separated by a little strip of India, like same cultural region, a lot of nonverbal cues I think I pick up. So it has helped, and I love the food, I love the people. So during that time of planning, when I got back from Nepal, RPN connected me with Nikki Boyd from San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance, and Nikki had been on RPN's board for a long time. And so since then, we've been, co-leading pretty much the program. Official titles have changed here and there, depending on who's transitioning from what institution. But Nikki has really helped with the institutional relationship. And I'm now part of the scientific advisory committee of RPN, which is great. But then I look over the conservation action and conservation planning side quite a bit. And that's where my strength lies. And these 5 people that you talked about, I think the great thing about the 5 of us is that we each have our own niche that we're, like, not that you guys could not do what I do, but you let me do what I do. And then vice versa, it sort of frees up the time that you just use the skills that you guys have. So, and I got here, and Pittsburgh Zoo was very supportive. So I would say even like before the program plan, about a year and a half, I was here. Pittsburgh was very supportive with a lot of financial support, a lot of organizational involvement. And then our CEO routinely asks after us. He asked me to keep it to a minimum because I can go for 30 minutes of Rich Panda safe updates. So
I'm aware.
Yeah, it's more of shortened just to sort of not exhaust his patience or team members' patience. But people here are quietly and thoroughly excited about Safe Red Panda. But I'll bunt it to Jen now.
Before you do, I have to say
sure.
one thing. I think it's very interesting. You talk about the niches that we all have, especially in the executive committee here. And it's so true. And I know I told you this at mid-year, but for the first year that we worked together, I was pretty convinced that you hated me because all you care about is conservation. Like, I've worked with a lot of conservationists, and I don't think I've ever met somebody who is more focused on just like that chunk of it, like the conservation science, the field work. You don't give a wet slap about the storytelling, really. You want it done, but like you don't think about it. You have the things that you think about.
I would say, I mean, thank you for continuing to work with me even after a year. I applaud your patience. I think my sort of
I broke Jen. This is great.
my focus on the conservation rigor of a SAFE program really stemmed from surveying all the SAFE programs that were out there at the time. And even to this day, I coach 2 or 3 other SAFE program. Have talked with a number of others. Actually, mid-year, you were at the session where we were talking about how to make SAFE programs a little bit more, not just tight, but bring all the different skill sets of the zoo team to a SAFE program action plan. But so when we were setting up the conservation program design, I just wanted to make sure that that side was not watered down because we don't understand it. And I have a lot of respect for you guys. Don't get me wrong.
I know that you do now.
Yeah.
Now I do. No, but and what you're saying is exactly it, though. Like, you needed to make sure that your side was taken care of.
Not my side. I mean, like, the thing is that we can talk all that we want. And I have been a teacher. Don't get me wrong. If we don't do that work that is happening in the field, and this is a conversation with RPN that comes up all the time. Like, if we're not doing that work right, we cannot tell a story.
Yeah.
So just wanted to make sure that work is super connected and strong. And there's still a focus. Just have probably softened up a little bit.
No, absolutely. And I think it's really cool because as we've worked together, and especially once I met you in person, Zoom is a terrible way to meet people, right? We do it and it works, but for like the first time. But it was so funny to me because I would start blathering on about social media and you would check out. You were okay, John, whatever. I'll come back to you in 20 minutes. That's what it felt like to me. Now that I know that you were not checked out. No, like I said, I know that. But it was really funny to me for the first year, just being like, this guy doesn't like anything that I'm doing, but we're here and we're doing the thing. That's cool. Now we're buds.
all I can say is that I sincerely appreciate your patience through all that me apparently checking out.
And again, I'm kidding. I know that you weren't checked out. We have actually been a fantastic team. All 5 of us work together incredibly well. I've been
But I'm
told...
glad that this came up before during mid-year. We grabbed a beer and talked about it.
I wouldn't have dropped this on you on the pod for the first time, I promise. But I will say that I've talked to a lot of SAFE programs now, and I'm amazed at how many already, like programs that have been around for a long time, look up to what we're doing and are like really impressed about how our team works and how we're getting things done, and how I've had a lot of different SAFE programs reach out to me and ask about what our like leadership structure is like and how we use the steering committee and how many working groups we have and all of that, because they feel like we're succeeding. And I just think that's incredible. Like, I didn't know we had a reputation amongst SAFE programs until they started reaching out and being like, can you tell me this? And I'm like, well, obviously we're awesome, so we'll explain it to you. But
yeah, just
We'll
one
share the
sentence. Just one sentence. Should the steering committee of Safe Panda be listening, we value them and we're trying to engage them more and more, and all the decisions do get shared with them so that they have the chance to give more input. But yeah, we need to do probably a even more engaging work to get them more
and
activated.
as the opportunities present, they step up.
Yeah,
we're
we have
working
such a
on a
great
project right now that we're not announcing yet, but I'm excited to give you guys an update about it, because we have some of the steering committee is kind of taking it over, and it's going to be really cool, and everybody listening should be really excited about it. And you'll find out closer to International Red Panda Day. But yeah, getting the people to act like they're so ready to go. And I know I've had a lot of steering committee members that I talk to that are like, what can we do? What can we do? And we're getting there. Starting the program is a slow process, though.
It is,
You know,
yeah, and I
which is
think
interesting.
it's interesting too, because we all have these expertise, and when you mash people together and say, take your expertise and make it functional for a species, I mean, that's kind of the joy and the curse of the SAFE in general, and the AZA model of really relying on volunteer work to kind of make this stuff happen. We are all experts in our fields. We come in, we want to do the best we can. There is a template for what the program plan has to look like, but nothing else, right? So we're really able to kind of figure out, again, survey, what are our resources? What are we really good at? What can we accomplish as a team right now? And figure it out. But for me, I had never worked on a SAFE previously to this one. I had been working in zoos for about 20 years and have looked at other SAFE models and had a good idea of how they worked. But being able to try it has been really enlightening, of figuring out how, much more in depth of how does AZA like work with the SAFEs, and how do all the SAFEs work with all the different zoos, and what is working and what is not working, and how do we try things differently with our SAFE to make sure our communication is more consistent, our communication is better, it is getting people more involved and more excited about what we're doing. So again, continuing to learn has been a really exciting thing, but man, that was a lot.
Yeah. So how did you first get involved? What dragged you into our world? Yeah, I figured.
Dragged me into the world. But I was not kicking and screaming. I was like, he showed me the way, and I was like, all right, let's walk down this path that I've never seen before. But yeah, I mean, learning about it and knowing the work that he had been doing with RPN, and having been involved in the SAFE, like the conception of the Safe Red Panda, it was exciting. And it's something that my, like the education team and my department was really interested in learning how we can better support, SAFEs and our partners in the field, both locally and globally. And this was a really nice way of, learning a little bit of how I can activate them and how I can activate, other zoo education teams to help support. So it's been a huge learning curve, and I really appreciate having been brought into it. And I appreciate the leadership of this team and the support of this team, and also, our incredible SAFE community. I mean, we have IRs reach out and figure out how they can support us, and everyone's really excited to do the work.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been really cool. What has been your favorite moment of Safe Red Panda so far?
I really liked meeting everyone. For that first in-person meeting we had was it annual a few years ago when we were launching the program plan, and just getting to see the people in the room that we've been talking to, and feeling the energy. Like, you can kind of feel the momentum build as we were working on everything and bringing all these different ideas together. But when we were all in the room, and able to talk about it and share the excitement. And then to see how packed that room was at annual with all the different zoos who were just excited to support the safe and excited to support red pandas in however they could. I mean, that was a great kickoff because it really showed how much people wanted to do, like I said, wanted to do the work and wanted to make a difference for red pandas.
Yeah. How about you?
It's all those meetings. Funny, like we talked about, I still care for people. I'm still hung up on it, but just
I managed to break both of you in this interview in a very different way.
His RBF is just very strong.
It is.
no, but so in the same vein, like the reason I was facetiously bringing up the idea that like people like focus on conservation goals, but it's still the people that do the work, right? Or the people that made the collaboration really fruitful and enjoyable. So all those meetings where connections happen, even virtual. But there was a meeting earlier this year, so you may know we are starting to get more hands-on with the conservation action component with the country staff of RP and Dunbar, Bista, or Dr. Bista, who's now co-leading or leading that portfolio. And with the revolution in Nepal last year, things got a little delayed, which was great. But long story long, some of those meetings, especially one, had Dunbar, two other colleagues, Manisha from University of Kentucky or Kentucky State, I forgot. And then Ashishi Patel, which is who's a colleague of ours over at Phipps Conservatory here in Pittsburgh. So here, and myself was included in the screen, and I could see that it's Nepalese scientists connecting with Nepalese colleagues back home, and they were really excited to be able to give back, and knowing my own experiences of wanting to give back, and sometimes it's difficult to find the right fit for giving back to the place that nurtured you. I could just sort of feel the genuine interest and genuine sort of longing among this group to be connecting and contributing back to the work in Nepal, and that was fantastic.
That's very cool. I like it. So you mentioned that you're from Bangladesh, and I'm a little confused by that because you have this perfect Pittsburgh accent. But so what's your story? How are you here now? Tell me the abbreviated version.
Very abbreviated. So landed. I was going to business school for my first semester back in Bangladesh, and my dad and my brother both had business administration degrees. So they were like, "Oh, yay, great!" And I was like, "No." So I escaped to Idaho. Didn't like it. So finished my bachelor's from Indiana, a small college, Goshen College. Went to grad school, wanting to save the world, studying climate change. So after that, I was teaching for Project Dragonfly, which is where you've studied for a little bit. I was there for 5 years, and then that sort of opened up conversations to work in applied conservation and zoo-based conservation, because a lot of grad students are zoo employees and so forth. So, and that was the sort of bridge to when I started to work for Detroit Zoo. And then my partner were just living apart. It had been 5 years of doing long distance. So during COVID, although we live like a couple hours from here, like south of Cleveland, we just never been to Pittsburgh. So we went to Falling Waters.
Nice.
And then on the way back, we went to Carnegie Mellon. There's a university campus where there's a really interesting sculpture where people are walking to the sky. You'll see it. And then from there, we went to Frick Environmental Center, which is about 3 miles this way. And she and I both, we are picky people. She and I both started talking about, wouldn't it be nice to live here? And lo and behold, 2 years down the road. So we, like many Pittsburghers, we fell in love with Pittsburgh. And that's why we're here. And we were surprised with how much like people outside Pittsburgh think of the city as like the Steel City, heartland of the Rust Belt. And the city has sort of in some ways, in my experience, like compared to other Rust Belt cities, like Detroit or Cleveland, I think Pittsburgh has tried to figure out more actively what a post-industrial look or economy for a Rust Belt city looks like. But you feel the vibrance in the community. And Jen was talking about, people care about the zoo. They care about the neighborhood and their city. And you're not from like Pittsburgh. You're from the East End. You're from Squirrel Hill. You're from Highland Park. You're from the neighborhood. So although we didn't know that, it just sort of was a really right fit. Like temperament-wise and aesthetic-wise, we love old houses. Pittsburgh has a lot of them. And so when the job opened up here, I was like, oh, we are applying. And she was just really kind to follow suit when I landed here. So that's the long story of me getting here.
The one thing you haven't really explained, though, that I need to know is, like, why did you come to the States? Like, what was it that made you want to, come here?
To start State Fair at Panda.
That makes sense. Good, perfect answer.
But no,
it was just a glimmer in his eye at the time.
I mean, I wanted to study environmental something. And it was, like I said, I was studying business. I wanted to escape from that. But and back in Bangladesh at the time, only one university offered something environmental. You could study zoology or botany, but very taxonomy oriented, or geology, very like technical, but not necessarily something holistic. So that ended up being sort of the gateway drug.
Very cool. Yeah. Very cool. And how about you? How did you get here? You said that you've worked in zoos for like 20 years, and I'm confused because Nope. That means you started when you were like, what, 8?
That's very kind of you. I started when I was 18. One of my first jobs out of high school was actually working in a gift shop at my local zoo at the Van Park Zoo, also called the Bergen County Zoo, because I'm from northern New Jersey. And I worked there in the summers for 4 years and was a gift shop supervisor by the end of it. And then I thought that was the end of my tenure in zoos. And then I was studying primatology, and I was going to be a primate field biologist. That's exactly what I wanted to do. So when I went to UT San Antonio for my master's program, I was studying primatology. And after the end of my first year, I said, I'm not ready to do field work yet. My research isn't quite honed in. So what can I do with myself so I'm not bored out of my mind during the summer? So I applied for an internship at the San Antonio Zoo as a keeper in the primate areas. And I was accepted, and I started, and it was very fun. I got to work with lemurs and spider monkeys, but also the bears and otters and all jaguars, all sorts of fun stuff. But I found myself during that time less interested in the animal care side and so much more interested in what impact is this having on the thousands of people that are coming through the doors, right? I was training how to give keeper chats and how to incorporate a keeper message or like a conservation message. And I just kept thinking, then what, right? Like, then what are people actually listening, hearing when we're talking about that? So I completely pivoted to environmental anthropology instead of researching primate dietary plasticity, which was what I was looking at. I instead started to look at what is the impact of one of those keeper chats on people. So that was the start of my education career. So I started in evaluation. I was hired at the San Antonio Zoo while I was going to grad school as their education evaluator. Did that for a few years. Decided the heat of Texas is too oppressive to my northern sensibilities.
Fair.
So I decided to come back up north, and we settled here in Pittsburgh because it was between our families. It was just really serendipitous that we ended up here. And then started working at the National Aviary, became their curator of education, and then found myself here. So it's been, I've bounced around a little bit, but I've also got to see so many different sides of what it means to work in a zoo. And really, my passion and interest in how people are learning and what the impact of zoos can be on the public, that's really what continues to drive me, because we still don't fully understand as an industry what our impact is. I think it is so much larger than we've been able to capture with the evaluations and studies that have been happening just in the last 10 to 15 years. There's so much more research that needs to be done, so much more opportunity for us to understand the impact, because so many people go to zoos, right?
Yeah.
Over 280 million in AZA zoos. And it's so much greater when you consider that the international zoos.
But so much less when you consider how many of them are just me going to different zoos every year.
Right. If we take you out,
the number drops.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't think we fully yet understand what our impact is. And I think that we have yet to fully grapple with how we harness it for good, for conservation good. And I think that so many zoos now, and just again, the last decade, I've really seen a shift in how do you integrate the conservation education and awareness work and the social media work with the conservation portfolio, so they're working in lockstep so that people can really connect with everything that the zoo is doing, and also focusing on a local impact, right? I think if you think about zoo conservation portfolios, and Shafkat, I'm curious to hear your ideas on this. If you look back 20 years, 30 years, it was all, how do we support international conservation? How do we support, we have cheetahs here. How do we support cheetahs in their natural habitat? Now we're really focusing on how do we look at ecosystems where we are situated in our neighborhoods that are impacting our friends and family and neighbors here in Pittsburgh or wherever else the zoo is. And how do we make a difference there as well? So that's how I found my way in, and hopefully what we're continuing to grapple with.
Yeah. There is a program, and I'm very intrigued by this. So, as you mentioned, I did Project Dragonfly for a little bit. It wasn't really a great fit for me, but I think it's a cool program. But there is a program at West Carolina University that is a master's in conservation psychology. And that is something that has been calling to me a little bit.
Antioch University.
Pardon me?
Antioch does that as well, and has a pretty long history of zoo folks going into that program if you're interested.
Nice. I didn't know that. That's good to know. Yeah. Because I want to do something. I want to do further my education in some way and give myself, honestly, at this point, I just want to give myself less imposter syndrome, but that's besides the point.
That's fully self-imposed.
No, it is. And I've learned that, but it's hard, I will say, all joking aside, I in my usual pithy way, told Zoe that I was going to start putting DR in front of my name for drummer, because all y'all are doctors and I'm just the guy who plays the drums. And I know it doesn't matter, but sometimes in my own
you have
brain
no idea how much I want that DR.
That's fair too. But yeah, it's interesting. But I also just love learning. But it's funny because when I started all of this, I just liked animals. This was just to share about animals and the cool people in the zoo world. And I didn't care much about conservation. I didn't know much about conservation. But over the years, as I've done this, it's like what I care about the most. And I was at, this will come out non-sequentially, but in the real world timeline, I was at the Maryland Zoo yesterday at their new red panda habitat. And I was so caught up in the signage, I missed a cute red panda for a couple of minutes. And that's
how you know you're a true zoo insider now.
I know,
you're
right?
Taking pictures of the signage. You're like, I love that trash can. I love that it has recycled material.
It's so cool that they had all this great information and they were presenting it in a great way. And I was blown away by it. And that's really where my heart and mind have gone. It's that connection, like you were talking about, between the zoo guests and reaching them and connecting with conservation, but also still really enjoying the really cute pandas that are at the zoo. And yeah, it's an interesting thing. So I think that might be where, if I eventually go back for my master's, I think that is what I will pursue at this point. But we'll see.
So when your research is on the impact of zoos, just send me your papers.
Yeah, we'll do. Yeah, because I find it crazy fascinating. Even when I did Dragonfly, everything that I did was focused on that. I did a very, very small, very basic study on 3 different types of signage at the Cleveland Zoo in the tree kangaroo habitat, because there are different types there. There are videos, and there's a kind of interactive thing, and there's just static signage. And so I was just tracking who was using what and for how long and all of that. But the fact that I created a study that both was what I cared about and had me in a room with tree kangaroos all day for a couple days was pretty solid,
Yeah. It's great that you're doing that work. It's great that there are people who are increasingly doing that work. And that, again, 20 years ago, that wasn't something that we were thinking about. There were a few papers of hey, education is important. I wonder what this does, ! Exclamation point. But there really has been this upswell in support for evaluation and social science research within zoos, which is great because that also follows a similar trend in conservation work. To Shafkat's point, there's an increasing recognition that conservation is a people problem, right? And people are going to solve it? And how do you make sure that the solutions that are presented and supported and funded are really driven by the people who are going to be implementing the change and also culturally relevant, and not causing more harm than good. So there's so much we need to know. And if there's any social scientists out there, I'm going to say, study zoos, study conservation, help us.
And I mean, to that point, like, there are wonderful, large conservation organizations in the world that are doing the work. I mean, we can quibble about exactly the way they do the work, which Jen would have her disciplinary as well as observations. But like, we can think about the Nature Conservancy, World Wildlife Fund, Wildlife Conservation Society, Conservation International, the newer iteration of them, all doing good work. So where do zoos have a really nice opportunity? And I think, based on talking with colleagues and assessing the landscape, I think zoos are really well positioned to sort of lift the veil of behind the scenes conservation happening far away. But if you do, what then? And that's where I think local conservation participatory action really fits in. Then people not only are thinking about red pandas in the Himalayas, which they may not be in a position to do much about, but they can be inspired to take action. And there's an immersive component to local action then. And then you actually have more of a, you provide them with an on-ramp to take environmental action rather than offering them this far away story, which we used to do really well even 20 years ago, but not really letting people become part of the story. And I think that's where we're sort of learning how to do better in the last 10 years or so.
Yeah, for sure. It's very cool. It's very important, and I'm excited to see where it goes. I just think there are so many amazing people in the zoo world and that are conservation focused, and it's been really cool just even learning about how many keepers care about this stuff. And they're the people that are focused on husbandry and day-to-day stuff, you would think, at a zoo, but then you talk to them and how many keepers are like, how can I help Safe Red Panda? Right. Or my goodness, our binturong keepers excited that we're trying to launch this safe program. It's been really cool to just see the excitement at all levels in the zoo. And I think that makes a lot of sense. We are coming to the end of our time. And so I do want to hit our last two questions. So is there a conservation organization that each of you would like to give a shout out to?
I'm going to take a little bit of I don't know, it might be controversial right now, but I would say the U.S. government historically has done so much work for conservation and has really been an unsung hero for conservation in our country. And they have lost so much funding and so much support from our government and from our members of the public. But U.S. Fish and Wildlife, our partners at the PA Game Commission, Fish and Boat, they work every single day to make sure that our habitats and, the national park system, they work so hard to conserve our landscapes and to conserve the species that live on them, and are not often, they're included as partners and regulatory bodies. But I don't think they're often thought of as conservation organizations, to their detriment, and frankly, to the detriment of all of us who are not fully stepping up to support them. So I would definitely say our government organizations right now, and everyone get out there, go to your national park, support your federal employees who are doing the great work.
Wow. 650 some episodes, and nobody has mentioned the federal government as a conservation organization. That's because
we take it for granted, right?
Yeah,
but
we
really, as a country, have one of the best protected area and national park access and conservation systems. And that does not happen without a lot of work and a lot of stewardship. Have they also gotten it wrong sometimes? Absolutely. Are we all going to learn and do better in the future? Absolutely. But without that structure, we would have lost so many more species and so much more land to conservation than we have so far.
Awesome.
I'll just add to that. I have my answer, but I just wanted to add one agency that doesn't exist anymore, USAID.
Yes.
Because they offered so much more integrated environmental and economic development.
Yeah, the One Health approach to conservation is so critical, and they were a huge supporter of that.
Or currently ongoing, like we were talking with the partners in Uganda, and they were just highlighting how previously, a decade ago, when the Ebola outbreak happened in West Central Africa, there was a USAID-supported health network that took care of the emerging epidemic there. And right now, I mean, I'm sure WHO is putting their people on the ground, but then there's this massive gap that is left by USAID. But USAID has also supported so much work environmentally that has kept the very ecosystem intact so that there's no disease spillover into human communities. So I think, and we were lucky in some sense that USAID, we didn't have any funding from USAID. Some other organizations did, but then our colleagues in Victoria Falls, they lost funding, and so one of our collaborative projects was tied to that. So that work, once they were gone, you could sort of see the vacuum of the work.
Yeah. Can I just make one?
Yeah,
So
sure.
in addition to the federal government, I do also want to acknowledge that tribal communities have also done so much work on the lands that they hold right now to really move forward conservation. I mean, Safe Bice and a variety of other AZA programs, and really relies on really strong partnerships and direction from the tribal communities as well. So those like two and broad entities, I know there's so many under those two broad umbrellas, but they really have made such a huge difference.
And I'll just go more conventional route, just highlighting how much I sort of look up to an organization like the Nature Conservancy in terms of some of the rigor you saw me on the first year of knowing me. Their work is not just a plan, but they're spatially explicit, meaning very definite areas where they're taking actions and following through, measuring impact and making sure that things happen. But they're sort of setting the benchmark for private organization working across regional and national boundaries and working really interdisciplinary way. So they continue to provide a really inspiring sort of standard for us to maintain, and that includes some of the other international organizations have not always acted with the community in mind, but the Nature Conservancy haven't had that sort of critique. So, and it's not sort of donate to TNC pitch. It's more that I think as conservationists, we can do that work. If that is our standard, we'll be okay. So, and that's where we try to elevate our work to that standard.
Cool. Very cool. I like that. And then it is time. It's time now, don't you know? We've come to the end of the show. But there's one tale left to go. You're gonna laugh and say, oh no. It's time for the Rossifari poop story.
Poop stories. As we were going through, I was trying to think, because working in this field, you have a lot of poop stories, right? I think the one that like lingers with me is when I was a zookeeper intern. We had small clawed otters. They still do at the San Antonio Zoo, and that was just like the most disgusting smell, right? But like every poop has its own unique smell, right? So I was cleaning it out one day, and I ended up standing up into. It was a very old like interior zookeeper area, standing up into a huge like rock ledge inside of the habitat, and like immediately got a concussion. I was like, this is not great, right?
Oh, no.
And you know, with concussions come headaches. To this day, if I get a bad headache, I smell otter poop. It's like my brain made that connection so strongly that my olfactory like part of my brain is like, oh, this happens when that happens. So it still haunts me to this day. Anytime I get a headache, a small clawed otter poop.
Holy cow. That's amazing.
It lingers.
That's a really good story. What do you have, Shafkat?
And I struggled to find a poop story because I don't have quite a poop story, but I can give you a pee story.
Perfect. Great.
Okay. So, speaking of tribes, so I mentored a undergraduate research experience program at the field site I worked at as a grad student. So there are all these Native American and Pacific Islander students coming who've never left their island or reservation pretty much. So, and they're in mountains of Costa Rica and they're just amazed, right? Second or third day of the program, one guy comes in and everybody's just laughing. What's going on? So at the dining area, we heard how he was just really excited to see the capuchin monkeys, the white-faced monkeys. And those are rascals.
Yeah, they are.
So the males approached and then peed on him from the canopy. And he was just looking up in awe. And then, So, and I was like, okay, cool. So cut to 4 or 5 years later, I'm going back to a forest I used to go back to in Bangladesh. I was like, I've not seen this langur, cap langur before in this forest. And there is another species, the fairies langur, beautiful faces. Mm-hmm. So the fairies moments before, then the cap came onto the scene on the canopy. I was just shaking, acting a little aggressive. I was like, oh, that's a cool behavior. I hadn't seen it. And then it sort of came a little closer. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then it positioned itself, which I didn't realize until I remember. I didn't actively think about. It's like when you see a snake, you jump before you think. It's like something instinctively told me to just step aside. So that guy really like shot 15 feet in the air and missed me by a couple of feet.
That's fantastic.
I was just impressed by the strength of the prostate.
and the targeting accuracy.
So I was like, man, that's good. Yeah, so.
That's awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for doing this. This has been fun.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
And so right after that conversation, as soon as the mics were off, Shafkat turned to me and just said, John, I have to tell you something. I really do hate you. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. It was so fun to be able to talk about all that stuff. And the thing that I told you that we're not announcing for Safe Red Panda yet, we're still not announcing it for Safe Red Panda yet. But y'all should be getting very excited, especially if you are people who happen to like, I don't know, red pandas. So yeah, very cool stuff in the works. And it is such an incredible honor to work with Jenn and Shafkat, and of course, Nikki and Kelly, who have both been on the podcast before. We make the executive committee of Safe Red Panda and then the entire steering committee. The work being done right now is so cool. And I'm so genuinely proud of everything that we have and will continue to accomplish. That's really it. We'll be back on Friday. But before then, I do want to say thank you to my Red Panda level patrons, particularly Dr. Laura Schenk, Dr. Stephen Williamson, Barbara Bennett, Jenny Owens, Melissa Reed, Carrie Kirkpatrick, John Lewis, who is also here for stickers, Kevin Williams, and Cormac McMuffin. Meow. And we'll be back. I already said the Zoo News thing because I went out of order. Whoops. Anyway, the word credits backwards is Styderk. The Rossifari podcast is produced, hosted, and engineered by John Rossi. Editing and fact-checking by John and Dr. Zoe Rossi. Our theme song is Sevens by Nathan Burke, performed by Nathan and John. Interrupting John theme and additional voices by Taylor Isaac Gray. You can reach John directly on Instagram and Facebook at Rossifari or by email at rossifaripod@gmail.com. Rossifari is part of the Daydreamer Media Network. Now, stop listening to me and go visit a zoo.